Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another exciting entry of the Delinquent podcast. Oh my god, I almost fucked up the title. I did fuck up the
You
title,
did
though,
fuck
didn't
it up.
I? I kind of did.
A little bit.
I
a little bit.
am Jerry Robotengu Smith,
And I'm Sean, bearded Cappolitan.
and we have a very special guest for you today. Drew, go ahead and introduce yourself, sir.
Hello, I am Crimson Talon of It's Toku Time podcast, and well, I'm not on my podcast. I'm here.
You are. You're on our podcast, in fact.
Oh boy.
Yeah, you're welcome to our country, bitch. I'm sorry
Yeah.
that
And
was a little too angry, too violent. Sorry.
I'm used to it.
and for those of you who may have tuned into some of our previous episodes, the Toku Time podcast should sound familiar, as we had his co-host Nathan Mobley on an older episode.
Sorry, something fell.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, that's okay. It was our viewer rating for this episode.
and unsubscribe
I believe it.
number started just increasing. They are subscribing just to unsubscribe.
It was so bad because we got like 500,000 viewers in our third episode. Did I predict third episode or fourth episode? I can't remember whether the bullshitting begins for this show.
Right.
But yeah, Drew, tell us about yourself.
Well, I have been cosplaying for about 10 years now. Recently got back into Tokusatsu, mainly Kamen Rider, Super Sentai, Ultraman.
Ultraman.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I lost Deno's head.
Uh-oh.
Oh, good job. Yeah.
And he is currently in the middle of working on one of those other interests. Why don't you tell him what you're doing right now, Drew?
What am I doing?
Yeah, you're telling us what you're doing, Drew. Like, what are you currently doing? What are you working on?
Well, currently working on right now. Thanks to Jerry and Sean, I am working on a Kamen Rider Deno model.
Yes.
Yep.
They're that's like the Figure-Rise the new models,
Figure-Rise
right?
standard.
Yes. I can't wait to get one of those, but they haven't really made my favorite riders out of it. I think they made a Fies so
They
far.
they have Fies, Double, Build, X-Aid, and Deno from what I've seen. They have like two or three forms of Double. I'm not sure.
Yeah, which is bullshit because they shouldn't have multiple forms of one when they haven't came out with a fucking Fours model yet.
Yeah, I know. I'm upset that they haven't yet. I'm waiting for that one. I need that one.
Yeah. No, it's like I could never go wrong. Like I was really hard pressed because they made the SIC fours, and I was like, "Oh, he's on sale. I'm gonna go ahead and buy it." And then they made a freaking rocket form SIC fours, and I'm like, "Oh, I really, really want that."
Yeah, that's just how I am. But they're way out of my price range. I'm like, no.
Yeah, it was a pretty penny for sure. So Drew, you guess get the first pick of the topic. So what do you have for us today?
Well, I mean, you kind of already mentioned it, so let's go with what we all three know: Kamen Rider.
Yeah.
All right.
Because that's an easy topic for me. Because I'm actually currently watching Amazon.
Oh, like Amazon's that's on Amazon or the original Amazon?
Oh, no, not the original. I don't have time for the original.
Oh, man. Yeah. Or patience.
Well, it's not just that. It's like, don't get me wrong. I love the original. I gotta stop dropping things.
Yes, it's very distracting.
I love Showa era. I really do. But it's just the way the Heisei is. I got yelled at by a friend for saying it wrong.
Yeah. Say it. You can only say it right on our podcast.
Yeah.
We don't want to get heckled for it.
Shoot, I don't even know which is
forgot.
which when I'm trying to remember the generation. I'm like, is it the old or the new ones? That's all I got.
That's what I always remember is Ichigo is Showa, and that's where it began, and then Kuga started Heisei.
Yeah, it's essentially like all the older stuff is Showa era,
Right?
and anything pretty much past like 90s is Heisei, and then you get into Neo Heisei, and then I forgot the newest generation starts with an R. Nope, lost it.
Reiwa.
Yeah, the Reiwa.
So
generation.
Heisei is like Kiva.
Yep.
Yep.
He is Heisei. Okay.
Yeah, I think everything up to is it like fours, like O's.
I think after Decade is Neo Heisei.
Yeah. Right. So,
Okay, well,
go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say, I know we've touched on Kamen Rider already, but just in case, 'cause I can't remember, for those who might be tuning in who aren't familiar with what exactly Kamen Rider is, Drew, do you want to kind of break down what the genre and the story of the series is?
Oh yeah, easily. Wow, that's bad for me. The fact that I can get right into that is bad. Basically, Kamen Rider is, you could technically say it's like Power Rangers, but a little bit better.
I
don't
agree with that.
necessarily-
Some people probably would prefer like Power Rangers Super Sentai with the group dynamic,
Yeah.
but I personally I do like Kamen Rider overall better than Super Sentai. What about you, Jerry?
Yeah.
You think it's better?
I mean, honestly, with like how many fucking Kamen Riders you've been getting in a series nowadays, you're basically getting Super Sentai in your Kamen Rider.
That's
so.
true.
Yep.
True.
Especially with the newest one, Saber. There's like, we're on episode 9. We already have 5.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Wow.
I haven't. Last I remember, it's Saber, Blades, as Nathan puts him, Dad's sword, Buster, Kamen Rider Buster. The newest one just got introduced, and he's like a ninja based. And the newest one just got introduced. I'm like, oh, okay, what the? Stop.
They're all of the newest ones are all based off of like fairy tales, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I find. That's what I find so interesting about this one. Is just like, it's books. Like, yeah, for those who don't know, when Kamen Rider is mentioned, like when we first get our glimpse of it, we get like the basis of what it is. Like when we first found out about Saber, it was books and swords. Or like, I'm sorry, books.
yeah.
And
No.
when I found that out, I was like, okay, I'm a little intrigued here because first of all, we haven't really had a sword-based Kamen Rider since Blade.
Right.
Right. And like one of the best things I feel like that's, and it's Sentai and Kamen Rider alike, are the crazy gimmicks that they do for them.
Yes, the
From
gimmicks are the
series to
absolute
series.
best thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, like I haven't seen nearly as much as y'all have, but basically hanging out with Jerry, I've gotten to at least get glimpses of the different series. Like I mentioned earlier, Kiva, he's a real like horror monster theme,
Oh yeah,
which of course is right up my alley for horror and all that. Just how he had the vampire motif of him, as well as getting the Frankenstein add-ons and the creature from the Black Lagoon. So and that's why I tell people is even if say you're watching a Kamen Rider, because for those who don't know, this series has been going on since what, the 60s or 70s?
1971 was the first series.
71. So and it's gone nonstop with well, for the most part, nonstop.
Yeah, I mean, they actually had a little bit of a gap there where there was some stuff not coming out, because I believe it was during the time that Shotaro Ishinomori died,
okay.
the creator of Kamen Rider. But I mean, they've had the Heisei era, when the 2000 stuff started up, was really the resurgence of it.
yeah.
But what I was getting at though is how say Kiva's horror based, Fours is what would you say is space and and Delinquent, the real thing, what really
Right.
matters. Delinquents to even even though I know it wasn't a very popular, it seems not to have been a very popular one, but Kamen Rider Ghost I absolutely loved, because it was all either fictional or historical actual figures though of famous. I loved, and the hoodie. The fact that it's hoodies, I fucking loved it. I loved everything about that show.
That was the same thing. Going back, when we first get the glimpse of the gimmick, all we get is what it could be. And for Ghost, it was clothes, and you're like,
Right. I was all about it.
And then,
I love that one.
go. Well, that's the thing. You will be attacked if you say you loved it because a lot of people don't, and I don't see why.
I don't know.
And like, I'm trying to think of what to compare it to, and I can't really think of anything like, modern day comics or anything, because I'm sure there's something like, okay, yeah, here's something. It's like, saying that you're this huge Star Wars fan, and then you like shit all over like, a specific thing for it, like, oh, I don't like this movie at all. Like, this is like the worst. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. Like, you have people like that. I mean, granted, there are a whole bunch of series. So if like one of them isn't your cup of tea, you can just watch a different one, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And like, a lot of times with these shows, they're made for like teenagers, like because you have Super Sentai that's made for like younger kids, and then you have like Kamen Rider that's made for a bit older, more mature. And it's like they have a pretty deep plot line in a bunch of them, but for the most part it's like about having fun and a lot of really cool like special effects and all of the gimmicks and stuff that they have. But like, yeah, you will have people that will be just say that they're diehard fans of it, and then like just utterly just talk about what they hate, like the series that they hate the most.
Yeah,
and it's always a downer because I know like I've found one person who I'm not going to mention their name, but they were cosplaying something from Kamen Rider at a convention, and like I was like just kind of talking about series that I enjoyed, and they just went into like, oh yeah, I really didn't like that series, it was really dumb for these reasons, and I'm like, oh okay, you're one of those fans.
Yep.
Yeah,
I know those all too well.
Yeah. But yeah, it's really like hung in there for a really long time.
Yeah.
Japan is just honestly really killing it with that genre in general, just the toku genre.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Now, like Nathan, Nathan? Sorry, Drew. I swear, all you Toku time. I know all you Toku time guys are gonna look alike to me. With your podcast and the episodes you dropped already, and again, like what Jerry was going on about, how you can really run into, and this any fandom where people just seem to really want to harp on the negative. I love listening to y'all's because I'm not that deep into tokusatsu. So, and you guys are just talking about what you love. I mean, sure, if there's something you were critical about it, you've brought it up, but overall, you guys are just talking about the good stuff. So, like, what's some of the ones you would recommend? What do you like about certain series? Give us some breakdowns of some good shows people out there might be interested in checking out.
You go ahead first, Drew.
I met Drew.
Yeah.
or Krim will work just fine. It's been my nickname for years. So, I guess if you want to get into Kamen Rider, one of the best series to start with, for me was actually Den-O, and I didn't know what Kamen Rider was because I just saw this thing on YouTube of this rider that I had no idea. Just he beat the absolute shit out of a monster.
Oh.
I just walked off. He skipped 3. Like he goes 3 and skips to 5, and then the rider or the person he possesses basically says that's not how that works, and he walks off, starts counting, skips 4. I'm like, what is this? I need to know. Because it was so funny, and I'm so glad I got into it. And it's been a trip ever since.
Right. And that series was really interesting. We were talking about gimmicks before. The big thing for Den-O was trains, and then they had like basically yokai that would possess the main rider, and that would be his different forms. So it was
what I found really interesting.
Yeah. My introduction to it actually, and it was suggested by somebody whenever I was first trying to get into it, was actually Decade, which I thought was a pretty good choice because Decade, as the name implies, touches on pretty much like every series in that decade that's come out since 2000. And the main character has this. Now, I will say that like I'm not a huge fan of this decade's design per se, because there's like some that work for me, some that don't. You know, you find whatever designs you want, but I don't hate it because of the design. But their whole thing was they would get cards for each writer through the 90s or the 2000s, and they were able to transform into each one of them. And I think they actually touched on Black and Black RX, which were from the late 80s. And then I want to say they actually brought in the original Kamen Riders at one point in the series. For one of the movies. Right. So they just like really kind of touched on a wide range of them, and then from there, from what they presented me in that series, I was able to decide on which series I wanted to watch next. And that's like another good thing about Kamen Rider is you could literally start in any series. You could just watch a single like series by itself, and you will get your Kamen Rider experience.
Yeah, because that was the beauty for me jumping in, because I can't remember what series you were watching, because I know my first experience with Kamen Rider was coming over to your house, Jerry, and you were watching some series. It may have been Den-O. You said Den-O was the one with the trains.
Den-O was the one with the trains.
Yeah, with the radiator grill kind of design to him, or is that a different one?
The grill kind of design on the mask was actually Decade. It was like cards. They had a pink and black and white suit, and he had like lines on his face.
It may have been because I remember that suit for being maybe the first time I really saw a Kamen Rider. And like, I mean, you would I'm pretty sure you would show me like Akon when I got to go that year. You were probably, I'm sure you saw something or showed me something to Kamen Rider and telling me about it. But that suit always stuck out when I'm trying to think of what the first thing I saw. But I know like the first series where I got in from the jump, and you're always gonna love your first rider, I'm sure, is Ghost. Ghost is the one I caught from the beginning and watched in its entirety, and then eventually we got a hold of Kiva, which is also probably the only other one I've watched in its entirety for Kamen Rider. So those two are like obviously my favorites because they're the ones I've been able to, I guess, catch from top to bottom. But I've seen like clips of Fords. I've seen bits from, like I said, Decade, Den-O, and a little bit of what was the wasn't Build, the one before Build, the video game one.
X8.
X8, yeah, which was fun, but I don't know, it wasn't hooking me.
Dr. Video Game theme. Yes. It was interesting, and I really liked a lot of stuff that they did in it. Like I can't even remember the name of the form, so Drew, you probably know it, but the one that was basically Super Mario Bros.
Oh, Mighty Brothers X.
Yes, yes. That was pretty great. It's essentially like his personality is just split into two different writers, and one was one color and one was the other. And I thought that was a really cool gimmick. Like they had a lot of really interesting different game gimmicks in that I really liked.
Yeah, I'm remembering one series. Was it like Kick Hopper? Or
that would be Kabuto.
Kabuto, yeah. I think we watched some of that too.
Yeah, Kick Hopper. Was a great series. Yeah, Punch Hopper and Kick Hopper.
There it was.
Yeah, they were the some of the people that were defeated by Kabuto, and like that was like they're supposed to be their redemption was being those like getting those rider suits and everything. So that was pretty great.
Okay, so I didn't know that what their deal was, but I also liked. In Den-O's the yokai on the train. I remember it's like the red one being like kind of a dick but kind of awesome at the same time. Was he the one that was voiced by Zoro from One Piece?
I don't remember any of those voice actors specifically because I don't think I was super looking out for it then.
Gotcha.
It's possible that it could have been though. But yeah, that one was kind of interesting because like the red one was an Oni. The yellow one was an ogre, and then the blue one, I believe, was a kappa.
Oh, Really?
Yeah.
I didn't realize he was supposed to be a Kappa.
Yeah, because he was called Turtle.
Yeah.
Really?
So he had kind of like a turtle shell design, and like his weapon whenever they used that form. Or was he blue or was he purple?
No,
The purple
blue.
one was different, right?
I'm looking at him now. There's a blue,
Urataros
yellow, and
was
red.
blue, and Ryutaros was purple. He was a literal brat.
Yeah. Which one was it? Was the blue one that had the fishing pole as a weapon, though, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That would be Urutaro.
Yeah. So that was pretty great. Like, the base form, the red Oni one had a sword, and then what was the weapon from the yellow one? I cannot remember.
Kintaro's had an axe.
Axe. That's right. Yeah.
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 Not like I don't know that series or anything like the back of my hand.
I know, right? Yeah.
Man,
And
but if one of them's a Kappa, that might become my new favorite Kamen Rider.
You'll love Urutaros. His thing is always trying to get the girl. He's trying to flirt with every single girl that walks. Ryutaros is just trying to have fun, be a kid, dance. Kintaros is me most times because he's always sleeping.
Yeah, from what I've seen of it, I remember like those yokai specifically were really sticking out for me. But again, it's the sad truth about wanting to really get into Kamen Rider, and for those who are trying to get out there, it's not easy to find them. Like, it's unfortunately going through, as we like to call it, nefarious means to watch them.
Yeah, right.
Although you can find like the older stuff, the original Kamen Rider is on what's it called,
Tokushatsu.
Tokushatsu, yeah, from Shout Factory. They are working on releasing some of the Kamen Rider and Super Sentai, and if you can find their free streaming app, you can find the original Kamen Rider and one of the couple. Actually, I think a couple of them, the first two maybe, as well as some old Super Sentai on there as well.
Yeah, if they ever get to the point where their Stronger is going to be out, I will stick to that like glue, because that's the one that's always resonated with me. I freaking love that form. Series. Yeah. He's just because I think up until that point, well, no, Amazon was not, because they all sort of stuck to this trope. I think all the way up until Black RX, which was like the last one of '89, and they didn't have any in the '90s. But it was always like, oh, we're an evil organization. We kidnapped this person. We're gonna turn him into a fucking robot to control and do our evil deeds. And then it always turns against them. And then it's like, yeah, I'm a hero for justice, and I'm gonna fuck this organization up now. Mm-hmm. So it was always great. But I think Stronger was the first one that had a super form. And it was the first one that had a sidekick. If I'm not mistaken, because then they had Super One eventually that had different forms and stuff, and that's where that really kicked off. But Stronger was just, oh man, so great.
Nice. I did look it up because I remember the Japanese voice actor Kazuya Nakai, who voices Roronoa Zoro. He is actually the preview narrator for Kamen Rider.
Oh wow!
So when they're talking about the next episode, but of course in Japanese, that is Zoro. I knew he was involved somewhere. I couldn't remember exactly what, but that's him apparently.
And and it's one of the things that I really love to see is whenever you get one of your favorite Kamen Rider actors in other live action stuff, just getting to see them act outside of that, because it was the actor that played in Fours was actually Ichigo.
That made me so excited for that movie because he did such a good job.
Yeah, and he's been in a lot of live action stuff.
Oh my wow!
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and one Meteor, Ichigo's. I'm trying to find his name now. The glasses.
The Quincy or whatever.
Uryu,
Uryu, yeah, that was Kamen Rider Meteor. So you had kind of a Fours reunion, the live action Bleach film, which was kind of awesome.
There was technically a Kamen Rider reunion, if you will. Gact, who plays Byakuya, did the theme song for Decade.
Really? Very cool.
And fun fact about the voice actor for Zoro that I just found out. He was a Q Ranger.
Really?
Oh.
He was Garu.
Oh.
Oh yeah. We knew that.
Oh, I forgot about it. But yeah,
I just looked that up. I was like, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah. I forgot, like, because he also well, no, never mind. I think he was the one that wasn't in Akiba Ranger. It was Sanji's voice actor and Frankie's voice actor that was in Akiba Ranger.
Oh god, Akiba Ranger.
Yes, so great.
I love it.
Going back to Sota Fukushi, the actor for Gintaro from Fours. One of the newer things that we actually saw him in that I forgot about was Blade of the Immortal. Remember that amazing ass movie?
Oh yes, absolutely.
He was the main bad guy in that.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
I remember that was another one of my big driving forces for watching that was to see him as the villain in that. And I'm pretty sure that the main character was also a Kamen Rider. But I honestly cannot completely remember. But yeah, it's really awesome seeing them succeed and pop up in more stuff. And just like another thing that they do for Kamen Rider a lot are the movies, right?
Right.
And a lot of time the movies are your chance to see them fighting with other Kamen Riders, against other Kamen Riders, even bringing in a big crossover with Super Sentai. Or just, getting a nice little story after the main storyline is finished. And honestly, like, one of my favorite things to, go back to and watch is the Kamen Rider 4's movie, Space Here We Come. I think I've showed this to Sean, but I don't know if he remembers it. They actually did, towards the end of it, did a combination switch for him and Meteor. So he got the Meteor.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that form.
Yeah, and he had basically at 4's Meteor form, and it was just like so great. It's like everything I wanted.
Side note on Kamen Rider actors beating other things, because I remember what started making me look for Kamen Rider actors in my Japanese cinemas was the Delinquent movie Drop, which you can, which actually, if you have the Funimation app, they produced the English subtitles and maybe the dub as well. But the lead delinquent was actually Kamen Rider Kabuto.
Oh,
that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. And it's also just an amazing delinquents comedy. Kind of like, it gets some serious moment to it, but it's a very fun, just high school delinquents beating the shit out of each other. Good old times.
His Kabuto's actor is actually really good at playing the cocky asshole, because that's exactly what Kabuto is.
Right.
Yeah, and that's definitely what he was in Drop.
I mean, he's number one under the heavens, right?
Yep. That's what I thought was kind of interesting, because that got me into it. I'm like, okay. At first, I don't like you, but then the series goes on. Like, crap.
I'm actually starting to like this guy. No.
Yeah, it's like going to anime real fast, since we're talking about One Piece.
Yeah,
it's
sure.
like with Deku from My Hero.
Oh yeah.
I hated him in the beginning.
What?
In the beginning, because he was so whiny, is why.
Okay.
But as the series went on, I started to like him, and then I related to him because I know how that is. It's weird when you find a character you relate to and just like, oh okay.
Hey,
go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry. Just a random piece of knowledge just to throw out there that I thought was interesting. So Hiro Musushima is the actor for Kabuto. And when things from America go to Japan, they got to do their own dubbing and everything. He played Bruce Banner, Edward Norton, in Incredible Hulk. he dubbed over it. Yeah, he dubbed over it. Edward Norton. Yeah,
that is cool.
Yeah, so if you go and watch the Incredible Hulk with Japanese dubs, you get Kabuto.
And I just might do that.
Well, it's funny you mentioned how you didn't like Deku at first, because one of my recent memories on my timeline was of a certain Comic Conway anime cosplay contest.
You know what? You shush.
That you entered in as Deku.
You shush.
You did. It was great.
That was my like I said, by the time I cosplayed him, I was actually beginning to like him.
Right. Yeah, and you had a great face-off with Knuckle Duster and the Crawler that year as well.
That was the only thing that upset me about that was I worked with what I had for the costume.
Right. Oh yeah. I mean, you had the wig. The wig was on point, and really, Deku wear street clothes just like anybody else. So if you get the wig and the freckles on point, you're good. You're Deku. Just do the finger flick.
That wig was from eBay.
Hey, you know what? We talk about cosplay, and Jerry's been directly involved in my creations and me helping him create. And I know I've shown you my process before, Drew. When we've been putting our group cosplays together. I'm a baller on a budget. I make the most basic, cheapest shit look as good as I possibly can because I don't.
85%.
I'm learning.
Yeah, because I mean, like you can, and bully for y'all, if y'all can go out there and buy the expensive, nicely crafted shit, I'm gonna do the damnedest I can with what I have on me, and I get some compliments every now and again. People want to take a picture, and that makes it worth it for me.
It's like with my recent Black Mask, everybody loves I do the comic book version now.
Oh yeah, your Black Mask is awesome. That's part of
Thank you, I try.
Yeah, I mean, we had fun with our. I talked about that too long ago, I believe. Our Justice League Apocalypse group cosplay.
Mm. Oh god, that was so much fun.
It was amazing, and the first time I've entered a group contest and won.
Yes, I'm here.
We did win. We were. It was a lot of fun, and and of course that's the main thing is we all had a blast, just hanging out, taking the photos, and we walk away with somebody has that printed out certificate saying we're winners.
I think Jason does.
Probably. I mean, it was all good.
I just wanted the whole, hey, we did this, like, holy crap.
No, absolutely. I mean, like I talked about with Jerry on an episode before. Just like for me personally, it was all worth it. All the like me trying to create the original designs and how we were all kind of like working together. And when they, because we were all getting like the audience reaction as we were all coming in one at a time. And I could be wrong, but like I felt like I got a pretty loud audible gasp from the crowd when they said Professor Pig and they saw what I made.
Oh no, yeah. When they saw yours, I think was I before or after?
I was the last one, so you were before me at some point. Yeah.
No. Drew was the last one, and Sean already stole the thunder. So when Drew walked out, they were like,
no, it's fine."
No,
it was funny because it was like Sean walks in, he's Professor Pig, like the whole gasping. As soon as I walked in, the whole room went silent. It's like, oh shit.
oh.
Well, I mean, granted, you were going.
Oh, I was fine with it because as long as people were just like staring at me, like, what the fuck?
I think it was the M. Bison Nazi-esque hat, which I thought was perfect
for
him.
I'm not ashamed of that.
Dude, no.
Eric had the hat. I was like, he's a warlord, so it works.
No, it was perfect. And it should, like, you would think, like, for those who don't, like, Black Skull's all about gaining more power in the mafia underworld. So in the future, when we made for our own headcanon that we created for that group cosplay, you think in a post-apocalyptic future where he managed to survive, he's gaining power as soon as he can. He's going to rule through as much fear as possible. So that dictator look you created for him was fucking perfect. I really dug it. I couldn't imagine being hot though. You had to be melting in that one.
Believe it or not, I wasn't.
That's surprising because you wore a lot of black and you were covered from head to toe.
Well, I mean, he's not called Black Mask for nothing.
It's true. And unlike a certain movie that I did enjoy, but the Black Mask, you actually wore the mask the entire time.
Don't get me started on that movie. I hated the ending.
So, anyway, going back to this Kamen Rider discussion.
What?
Yeah, thank you, sorry.
No, I was just going to kind of rattle off some of the interesting tropes that we had in Kamen Rider. Over the last few things, because the whole thing of Kamen Rider went from like, they were androids or whatever that got changed. Mm-hmm. And I mean, if this trope sounds familiar to you and you've never heard of the show Cyborg 009, highly recommended. Yep. It's by the same person.
Really?
Yeah. Shotaro Shinomori created Kamen Rider and Cyborg 009 and Kikaider. Was another
Kikaider, wow, that's...
And I'm going to throw out an old school thing for y'all real quick because I've been going through it. recently came across some old Super Nintendo era Nintendo Powers.
Oh yes.
And he drew, wrote, and illustrated and wrote the Link to the Past comics that were manga comics that were in the old Nintendo Powers back in the day.
Yes.
Oh,
and
wow.
and they actually just reprinted those about 4 or 5 years ago,
Yeah.
and you can get them in a trade paperback now.
I have that as well. I love those comics from back in the day, and now that I came across a huge collection of them, I've been enjoying just flipping through it again in the original format.
Yeah, and I mean his art is fantastic. Like,
yeah.
So you get like a device called a driver. Normally, it's like a belt, that you use to transform. And they come up with different gimmicks. When it first started, it was just like, oh, this super powered belt that had this really cool like electric disc in it, and that's how we change. And then whenever you got to the 2000s, like I said, Super One was a bit different. When you got to the 2000s, they were like, hey, I got this fucking idea and it's going to sell a lot of toys. And they basically started coming up with gimmicks, right?
Right.
The first one that I could always think of is Ryuki, because they were playing off of that card gimmick like hardcore. And each rider, I think they had the same kind of belt. Did they have wrist? Yeah. Did they have wrist transformer things?
They had the belts. Most had like their card reader was on the wrist.
Yeah. So they basically had a card to transform, and then it'd be some kind of animal or something that would pop up into a mirror. Long weird story there. Then you got to Kamen.
Because
then you got to Kamen. Right. Then you got to Kamen Rider Fives, which I guess was like at the start, the real big spring of like cell phones and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So most of the belts from that were the main piece that they used was a cell phone, and then they had a bunch of accessories that went with that did different power-ups and various things like that.
Yeah, flip phone to be specific.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, Japan's like
they love the flip phone still to this day.
Yeah, they're still making new flip phones. Then you had Blade, which was another card series. You had Hibiki, which I thought was pretty interesting. They had instruments that they used to transform.
The only thing I didn't like about Hibiki at first was the camera.
Man, I don't even remember the camera. What do you? Was there one of them that transformed with the camera?
No. I mean, like how they did. Yeah.
Like how they filmed it.
Yeah, like the filming style.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's one that I admittedly still have not gone back and watched.
And that's the only thing I didn't like about it. But
yeah,
overall, I love Hibiki's style.
Right.
Now, here's something, too. You mentioned, like, the gimmicks about what they transform into and, like, what the themes are. But there's also something unique to every series. Each rider, and secondary and first and all that, have a unique kind of a pose or a sequence of moves they got to do to henshin, to change.
Yeah. And that was honestly even a bit bigger in the Showa era stuff. Like they all had a specific, like, it's almost like, okay, to put it in layman terms and stuff that like regular anime watchers would understand, Dragon Ball Z, when they do the fusion dance.
The fusion dance.
Right. Which I'm pretty sure the fusion dance is probably, in some way connected or was inspired by the Kamen Rider poses.
I mean, we had that. We had the Ginyu Force, all those posing that they did when they were talking about like introducing each other. Mm-hmm. That was a rider pose. We each and the Great Saiyaman.
Great Saiyaman.
Yeah, Gohan. Gohan superhero persona was 100% a Kamen Rider tribute.
And fun fact that actually they really were. They based him off of a Kamen Rider.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I mean, like. Yeah, the green and the little antennas and everything and the bug eyes on it. Yeah, 100%. So let's see. I was on Blade, Hibiki, then Kabuto, which honestly, like, if you were to start with like any of the Heisei series, I would honestly recommend Kabuto. It was like real good stuff, like real badass out of the bat. And the way that they transformed is they had like these little like bugs that they put on their belt. And the main one, was like a Kabuto beetle. They had grasshoppers. One of them was a stag beetle. They actually brought out like a lot of riders for that series. That one was great. And then Dino. How did they transform in Dino?
Dino was a train pass.
Oh, right. The train pass that they would kind of scan
Nice.
over the belt. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting.
Kamen Rider Kiba, the main belt for that was a bat, and they had little switches that they would put in the bat, and then it would chomp down on them, and Kiba would change into the different forms.
Yep.
I thought that was kind of cool that Kiva bit his hand, and that's how he was able to transform.
Yeah. He would basically get bitten, and the Kamen Rider would like go through his veins and then just transform him.
Yeah, with the whole vampire theme that he was, the Dracula stuff. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah. Decade, which I said earlier, was with the cards. There was Kamen Rider Double, which was kind of like USB cards. But the interesting thing about Double is it was two different people, and they had a belt, so they would have like a shared transformation, and one of them would pass out, and like their mind would basically go into the body of the other one, and they would do a lot of mixed forms with like elements and stuff like that. That one was really cool. Then they had O's, which was coins, and they would have 3 different coins, and they would go through basically the animal kingdom. And the cool thing about that one was if you lined up with like 3 that were from the same like animal kingdom, you would get like a super form. That one was a lot of fun too. Then we talked about fours. Fours was switches, which was kind of interesting if you think about it. And I've seen a lot of people bring it up. Double was 2 different things. O's was 3 different things. Fours was 4 different things. In fours, it was space based. So they did a lot with like modules and stuff like that. So on the belt, there were these 4 places, and they had switches. And depending on where you put the switch on each spot, it was for the arm or the leg, whichever one of those are. And they had some just wild shit. Like one was a paintbrush for the leg, and they had like a crank and a parachute. It was bananas. And then the rider kick, was like the rocket on the arm with the drill leg, which was real great.
Now, would you say like fours had one of the most, like probably the most combinations for Kamen Riders, at least at the time? Because he had a ton of really mixing and matching his. Because usually, like they get their upgrades. Even like Kiva had different components, but it was usually like I'm using one or the other. But I remember fours like combining a lot of them together.
Yeah, and that was a lot of like how the episodes went, because they were like, oh hey, we came up with this new switch. We don't know what it does, and then like later on, he'd find some kind of use for it. Like the paintbrush, for instance, he could kick in the air, and it would make solid. It would make like solid characters and stuff that would block for him and everything. So it was like kind of a shield thing. It was honestly pretty neat. And then you had Wizard that had the magical rings because it was magic based. You had Gaim, which was pretty bizarre. It was fruit based locks. So you had you had locks that they locked onto their belt, and then they had a little sword on the belt that would cut the lock in half, like splitting the fruit, and then they would like a giant fruit would pop up out of a zipper in the air above them and fall on them, and then they would transform with that.
Yeah,
someone was definitely right. Somebody was definitely on acid when they wrote that show. I want to say that there was like someone really interesting that had something to do with that. But anyway, they had Drive, which was, as the name implies, all car-based or motorcycle-based. Ghost, as we said, that was they were little icons, and each icon was based off of a historical figure or what have you. Like Thomas Edison was an electric form, Musashi Miyamoto was a sword form. X-Aid was game cartridges. Build was like the shake bottles, right? Like it was a very like scientific, like chemical based thing.
Yeah, Build was a one inorganic and one organic.
Mm. So they've done some weird stuff, and I mean, aside from like the gimmicks, they always have a motorcycle going into it or some kind, unless you're freaking who was it that did X8? Didn't X8 have a bicycle? Or no, he actually had a Kamen Rider that had a motorcycle or that turned into a motorcycle. Yes.
That would be Laser, and one of the Gashats was a BMX bike.
Yes, yeah, that's right. He had a bicycle at first, and I remember when they first announced him because I guess they usually show the motorcycle at the announcement. They brought out this little BMX bike, and he was like, "What?" It was pretty great. Go ahead.
I forgot what was.
I was gonna throw in about X8, even though I didn't really get into that one. Surprisingly, being the video game theme that it is, I did love he had the kind of the chibi, like big head, like Super Nintendo mode. You kind of say.
Yes, that was adorable.
Yeah, like it was like basically like picture like a mascot costume version of that Kamen Rider. It was pretty damn cute. I got to give him up for that one.
Yeah, that was kind of his things. That was like his level 1, right?
Right.
And then like whenever he transformed to level 2, that's whenever he got his like better looking form, and then so on and so forth. You got the Mighty Brothers X and stuff like that. That was really cool. But yeah, like gimmicks, usually motorcycle, and then they always have a finishing move that's normally a rider kick.
Yeah, which everyone has like a little twist to each of theirs. Like I always like that Kiva leaped upside down in front of a moon, even in the daylight, before spinning, which usually is like almost like a drill. It's a flying sidekick for those who've never seen it into the monsters, which usually finishes them off. And you have like the little variations in every series. I have like a unique take, either how they leap or what kind of effect kicks off with their specific rider kick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was fucking great stuff, man.
I remembered.
What's up?
It was about Forza, how you were saying with all the different switches.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny how most Kamen Riders, they already know how to use the belt, but when Forza gets it, for example, you know probably switch I'm talking about, Jerry. The elect switch. When he first gets it, it's basically a cattle prod, and he sees it and like, how do you do this? Turns it, ends up shocking the monsters. Like, wait, what?
well, I think another thing is like, I think when they were like, use the belt, I think he went to try to attack somebody with the belt, and they were like, no, you have to put it on. Just so great. So the thing that I mentioned about Gaim, and something that made me interested in it before it started, was it was actually written by Gen Urobuchi, and they were the writer that did the anime Psycho-Pass, light novel for Fate Zero.
Wow.
So I knew there was going to be a bit of darkness like there in the series. He's definitely written and worked on some pretty like interesting and dark stuff. Which if you've seen Gaim, you know that it's like real dark. A lot of credits for Madoka Magica. So yeah,
I have not watched that.
Yeah,
it's good stuff.
I was trying to actually find. Cause I wanted to bring up the space icon for Kamen Rider Ghost. You happen to remember what that one was?
Oh, I do not off the top of my head.
I don't either.
Yeah.
But
yeah. I'm looking for the Sanzo Damashi. That's the one, the Sanzo one.
Yeah.
But which was, I think I don't remember him using it very much, but if you remember why that one always stood out to me was because he equipped it, he went into space for a second, and he struck the Kamen Rider 4. It's space time!
Yeah.
Like, you gotta love that little shout out to Kamen Rider 4 is there from Ghost. I thought that was real neat.
I tripped my shit whenever I saw it.
I think what was funnier is when when Gaim did that. They had Zangetsu do it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And it's like it's space time. Okay, that's enough of that.
Yeah, because remember they had icons that were based off of all of the I believe the Hesse riders.
That was
So like whenever
movie,
they
right?
equipped them, I think so. It was special.
It was only for that movie. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was real great because Spectre ended up getting it, and I was like, that's perfect because he was like super straight laced and like you know how they do for their second riders, they're super serious.
Yep.
Like Excel with his fucking gunblade, just amazing.
Yeah, actually, you got me the Kiva switch from that movie, which I don't remember if he actually used it, but I got one of the switches for Kiva for his Force belt. Mm-hmm. Which, of course, with all these gimmicks, all these toys galore, that comes along with these series, and it's like just kind of amazing how how they've kept it pumping. It's it's very reminiscent of my childhood of the '80s, how like my cartoons were pretty much walking advertisements, and Kamen Rider's that much different. But what's really cool is how it's still like you take even these things are for like kids, but like Drew, I know you have a TikTok like cosplay stuff you do, right?
Yes.
Using those, like using the not morphers, the drives and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I haven't really yet because the last time I did a Kamen Rider was AnimeCon Arkansas, and the belt straps I had from broke.
Oh.
Because my friend told me to get travel stuff. Like, oh sure, yeah, that didn't work.
Ah, jeez. Cause that's
something
I wouldn't mind doing, but I would definitely need belt extenders if I was ever to get.
Oh yeah, and that's what it was. It was a belt extender that just broke the day. Like the best part is it lasted until the end of my Kamen Rider panel, and then it just went pop. I'm like, fuck.
Well, no. At least it made it through that.
Yeah. Well, then the worst part is, like Jerry mentioned, I was dressed up as Ichigo in his Bankai form with the Forze driver. but before I could get my badge and everything, that part broke. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
I mean, surely there's got to be some videos or someone who's managed to find like a universal way to make these belts fit on us full-grown gentlemen, so we can dress like these kids' characters.
They have the CSM belts now, which they came out with the extenders for those for a regular belt.
See, I'm gonna need something made out of elastic, to wrap around my body.
You see, that's why I want to do Necrom, because his driver is on his wrist. I ain't got to worry about my big gut.
Right.
Yeah, that's one reason I did. I'm doing the end because his is a gun, and he doesn't get a belt until he becomes a rider.
Right.
And that's what I liked most about him. And he's that cocky asshole. And there's so many of them in the series, like with Momotaros. As soon as they come up with a movie for Kamen Rider, if they get the crossover of all of them, you already know he's going to be in it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just cosplay Super Sentai, because then you won't have to worry about the belt.
well, like
that's
you,
yeah.
I mean, you got the Q Ranger, the hand morpher, Jerry, while we were in Japan. And my man hands can't fit in that sumbitch, and there's no way to break it apart for me to like, other than putting like 3 fingers in it, like a claw. So I can't even do that much.
Right.
I feel that.
Well,
that's why I like the wrist ones most, because it just I have dainty wrists, so
hey, whatever works, right?
I can fit them on there. But the Q Ranger one, I can't. That handle, it's so small. I'm like when I looked at Jerry, it's like, yep, can't do this one. If I was to do something for it, I would probably do a Ho Soldier.
You get
Ho Soldier. He has a sword and a shield, basically.
Oh yeah. Okay.
He was, one of the 35 Rangers they had in Q Ranger.
Lord, if it ain't Champ or I can't remember her name right now, the Chameleon, the Green Ranger.
Cammy.
Cammy, there it is. Those were my two favorites. I had to get the keychains when we found the gachapon with the little keychains for Q Rangers.
My favorites are Garu and what is his name? Stinger.
Stinger, yes.
Is Stinger the Yellow Ranger?
Orange
Ranger, yeah. Okay, yeah. Scorpion.
Spada was yellow.
Spada, yeah. Spada's the reason we're not getting Q Rangers here in the States.
Stupid.
I bitched about that before, I'm pretty sure, on the show. If not, I'm going to say it again. All because he has a pointy fucking helmet. America's like, we can't have that. We can have all these swords, guns, and other sharp objects, but a pointy fucking helmet. So we're not getting any of these quality American toys because, much as I love you, Japan, you make a lot of nice like SH figure arts. You're not making Q Ranger ones, and you're definitely not making one a Champ. That was my only hope of getting a solid Champ figure was when they brought him here.
I think it's less that and more of they don't want to have an Orange Ranger because they think they'll confuse people because we're not getting my favorite Resha Sentai Tokuger either. So
I wonder why.
Yeah, I know. I know that one scene with the Zord. You don't have to fucking rub it in.
For those who don't know, Resha Sentai Tokuger basically has a train dick.
Listen, they literally do not have to have that in the series. They cut and edit this shit all the time.
Right.
They could just leave it out. It's such a great series. And if they could just
with the power of imagination, yeah.
It's like, yeah. It's basically like the perfect, like if I was growing up, and this series came out when I was growing up, like this would probably be one of my favorite things ever. I mean, it already is my favorite thing ever. Like, I've barely grown up since I grew up.
I feel that.
But no, it's just it was fantastic. It was definitely my favorite series, and like the freaking Orange Ranger in it is like one of my all-time favorite characters ever in a series. Like he's just like kind of hard-boiled, but ends up in these like just silly comical like situations and stuff like that.
Yeah. He tries to be the don't touch me. I'm a brooding. I'm like Batman basically. And he becomes commander.
Yeah, I love how he was always brooding, and at one point they were like, he's hiding something. We can't figure out what he's hiding. Like, what is he doing? Because he's doing all the suspicious stuff, and you find out that he's like taking care of a kitten.
Yep.
Yeah, like he had a kitten in his hat or whatever. Like, so great.
Right on. Well, gentlemen, we are nearing our time. Drew, we want to thank you for coming on. And if you have anything you want to promote, advertise, or just say, feel free. Now is your time.
Really, the only thing I can think of right now would be my podcast. It's Toku Time, which, funny story, we have an episode coming out this Friday.
At time of recording, because this will be, probably not. This is going to be released a few weeks from where we record in advance for those who want to know how we make the sausage.
So just know when this episode comes out, Drew released an episode like 5 Fridays ago.
Yes. Well, we're on Spotify, so the night we record, it'll be up there. So if y'all just look up It's Toku Time on Spotify, it'll be up there when it's ready.
Yeah, in fact, you'll probably have multiple episodes to watch by the time this episode comes out. So it's even a bigger treat for you.
Yeah, because if y'all haven't already, you do need to tune into It's Toku Time. It's a lot of fun. If you're at all interested in tokusatsu, which, as we kind of mentioned, as Drew mentioned earlier, is anything from Power Rangers, Super Sentai, Kamen Rider, Ultraman, Godzilla. I mean, y'all talk about so many cool stuff. If you have any interest in it at all, this is a really good podcast to listen to, because me, as pretty much a noob to the genre, I find it very fascinating.
Yeah, indeed. And it's something I'm into, so if I fucking completely consent to it, do it. Do it up.
All right, well, that's going to do it for now. Thank y'all again for tuning in. If you enjoyed what you listened to, please like, comment, subscribe, and, of course, the biggest thing is share away. I'll have a link to the Toku Time podcast in the descriptions. But for now, y'all take it easy.
Yeah, peace.